The rain streaked across the tall windows of a high-rise in downtown Chicago as Marissa Kane, 54, sat across from her boss in a conference room that smelled faintly of fresh coffee and new carpet. Across the table, Victoria Langford, the freshly promoted VP of Operations, flipped through Marissa's promotion packet with the same detached air she might use for a takeout menu. 2 decades of client win system overhauls and revenue-saving interventions were condensed into 22 pages. Victoria closed the folder with a gentle tap and said, adjusting her pearl earrings, "I've reviewed your application thoroughly, and while your work has been adequate, I don't believe you're ready for senior management. Perhaps revisit this in a year or two." Adequate. The word landed like a lead weight. Marissa had single-handedly rescued the Whitmore account worth $8 million annually after everyone else had written it off. She had led her division to the highest client satisfaction ratings for 5 consecutive years. She hadn't taken a true vacation since 2019, but she only gave a measured nod, the mask she'd perfected over decades in corporate America. "I understand. Thank you for your feedback." Victoria glanced at her smartwatch. "The Baxter proposal needs your attention today. They've asked for additional metrics before signing." She was already typing an email as Marissa gathered her things, the sting of the conversation dismissed as if it had never happened. On her way out, Marissa passed the corner office that should have been hers, a skyline view and glass nameplate still belonging to someone else. In the underground garage, she sat behind the wheel of her Ford Edge, staring into the rearview mirror. The face looking back wasn't defeated. It was calculating. 2 decisions crystallized. She would cancel her upcoming vacation to Santa Fe, and she would stop producing her meticulously detailed daily operational briefs, the silent blueprint that kept the company's workflow flawless. No one at Langford and Pierce Consulting knew it yet, but their perfectly oiled machine was about to run without its invisible mechanic. Before I tell you what happened next, you might be wondering why so many seasoned professionals feel trapped in roles where their value goes unseen. If this feels familiar, I share a new workplace strategy every week that could change the trajectory of your career. Make sure to subscribe. Now back to that gray morning. I'm Marissa Kane, and until that meeting, I was the dependable one. Not the most visible, not the highest paid, but the one who solved problems before they even reached the surface. When I joined the firm in 2003, I inherited a disaster zone. The previous operations lead had walked out over a feud with management, taking every scrap of institutional knowledge with him. No process manuals, no system logins, no documentation. It took me months of late nights, coffee-fueled weekends, and painstaking reverse engineering to rebuild the framework from the ground up. I created indexed, color-coded guides for every process. Victoria never bothered to learn them. Why would she? I kept everything running so she could take the credit. That morning, something in me shifted, and the countdown to their wake-up call began. When the previous operations manager at Langford and Pierce Consulting stormed out in 2003 after a clash with upper management, he took every ounce of procedural knowledge with him. No documentation, no transition notes, not even passwords to critical systems. The department fell into chaos. Clients threatened to walk deadlines, slipped, and no one knew where to begin. I, Marissa Kane, then 32, spent the next 3 months reverse engineering every workflow. Midnight became my norm as I decoded spreadsheets, dug through old emails for client histories, and rebuilt our processes from scratch. By the time I was done, I had created a library of detailed guides, color-coded, indexed, and meticulously organized. I was proud of it, even if no one else seemed to understand its value. Victoria Langford. My boss now never once tried to learn these systems. Why would she? I kept everything running so seamlessly she could focus on presentations and photo ops. "You're a natural problem solver," she'd say during performance reviews, followed by raises that never came close to matching my workload. Most recently, the firm had landed Baxter Industries, a client worth millions annually. That relationship, I built it from the ground up, late nights, adjusting to their European time zone, deep diving into their industry so we could anticipate their needs. Victoria attended exactly 3 meetings, all for the purpose of claiming credit in quarterly reviews. Every morning at 7:30, I'd prepare briefing notes for her 9 o'clock leadership meeting. Every evening, I'd send comprehensive project updates. And in between, I put out fires before anyone smelled smoke. But the morning after she rejected my promotion application, something in me shifted. I arrived at exactly 9 o'clock, not 7:30, not 8:45, exactly 9. No briefing notes. No preemptive troubleshooting. I answered only the emails sent directly to me and ignored the rest. When a crisis popped up with a shipping partner, I forwarded it to logistics instead of fixing it myself. By noon, 3 colleagues had stopped by my desk looking bewildered. If you want to see what happened next and how one decision set off a chain of changes I never saw coming, make sure you subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter of my story. Marissa, did you see the issue with the Baxter delivery schedule? Asked Ken from accounts. Yes, I said without looking up from my keyboard. So, are you going to fix it like you usually do? That's actually under logistics, I replied. I've already sent it to them. His eyebrows shot up. But I've been advised to focus on my assigned responsibilities, I said with a polite smile. Just trying to demonstrate I know my place in the organization. At 5 o'clock sharp, I packed my bag and left. No late hours. No work taken home. On the drive, I canceled my upcoming trip to Santa Fe, the first real vacation I'd planned in years. Instead, I intended to be right here watching as the cracks widened into full collapse. That night, my phone buzzed with work notifications. I silenced it and spent the evening with my grandson baking chocolate chip cookies, something I hadn't done in months. As my grandson and I laughed over the lumpy, uneven cookie dough, I felt something in me uncoil. Grandma, why are you home early? Ethan asked, licking chocolate from a spoon. I thought about how to explain corporate politics to a 9-year-old. I decided my time is valuable, I said, and I'd rather spend more of it with you. His face lit up. Can we do this tomorrow too? Absolutely, I promised, ignoring my work phone buzzing on the counter like a trapped insect. By the next morning, the first cracks were already visible back at Langford and Pierce. Baxter Industries had requested urgent adjustments to their implementation plan, adjustments that only I knew how to make. Victoria tried to lead the response team herself, but without my detailed briefings, she was quickly floundering. Where are the process notes for the Baxter customizations? She demanded, striding up to my desk at 10:30 a.m. They're in the shared drive, I replied pleasantly. Under client implementations, mentioned in last month's department meeting. There are hundreds of files there. Which one? I turned my monitor so she could see. The master document is called Baxter Integration Complete Process Documentation, organized by module tabbed sections. She stared at the 200-page file with thinly veiled panic. Can you just handle this directly? The client is waiting. I'd be happy to, I said, but I have the quarterly compliance review this afternoon. I can get to Baxter first thing tomorrow morning. Her jaw tightened. This can't wait until tomorrow. I understand. Would you like me to reschedule the compliance review? It's due to the regulators by end of day. She left without answering, her heels clicking like warning shots down the hallway. That evening, I silenced every work notification and took Ethan to the park. My personal phone sat untouched beside me on the bench as I watched him pump higher on the swings, his laughter carrying in the cool air. When we got home, I glanced at my work phone once. 79 missed calls. Voicemails ranging from puzzled to furious. Baxter's team was threatening to pull their contract. 3 critical systems had developed avoidable issues, all clearly documented in my guides, which no one had bothered to read. The compliance report due that day, still untouched. I set the phone face down and slept more deeply than I had in years. The next morning, I arrived at exactly 9:00 again. The office was a storm. People rushing between conference rooms, voices raised behind closed doors. Through her glass walls, Victoria gestured wildly on a video call. The regional director's assistant paced near the elevators. I sat, opened my notebook, and began my day calm in the center of their chaos. Where have you been, Ken? From accounting, hissed, leaning over my desk with wide eyes. Everything's falling apart. Victoria's been trying to reach you since yesterday afternoon. I left at 5, I replied evenly. My work hours are 9 to 5, as stated in my contract. But the Baxter crisis, what about it? His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. They're threatening to cancel the deal. Nobody can figure out how to implement the changes they're demanding. I nodded. That process requires special handling. It's all documented in the guide I created last year. Yeah, but nobody can make sense of your documentation without you walking them through it. His voice pitched higher. Before I could answer, Victoria's assistant appeared in the doorway. Marissa, emergency meeting in the conference room? Now. I picked up my notebook and pen, walking at my usual unhurried pace. Inside, Victoria sat across from Daniel Rourke, our regional director. Folders were spread across the table, both of them looking grim. Marissa, Daniel said with clear relief, "Thank goodness you're here. We need your help with this Baxter situation immediately." I took my seat and set the notebook down. Of course. How can I assist? Victoria's expression was tight, her tone clipped. Let's cut to the chase. What will it take for you to fix this? The promotion. It's yours. I tilted my head. That's generous, but I've been contacted by a competitor. They've offered me a senior management role with a substantial salary increase. Apparently, they believe I'm qualified. The room went silent. Daniel's eyebrows rose. Victoria's eyes narrowed. You're leaving? Daniel asked. I haven't accepted their offer yet, I replied. I'm considering my options. Name your price, Daniel said quickly. Whatever they're offering, we'll match it. I gave a polite smile. It's not just about compensation. It's about recognition, respect, and opportunity. The Baxter team specifically asked for you by name. Victoria interjected. Interesting, I said. So did 4 other clients this month. I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table. Here's my 2 weeks' notice. I'll assist with the transition as my contract requires. Victoria reached for it, but Daniel was faster. He opened the folder, scanned the letter, and then closed it firmly. This won't be necessary, he said, his tone final. Marissa, I'd like to speak with you privately in my office now. I rose, feeling every pair of eyes in the room follow me. The balance of power had shifted, and they knew it. Marissa, I'd like to speak with you privately in my office. I rose to follow Daniel, catching a glimpse of Victoria still seated at the table, her knuckles pressed white against the polished wood. The company's response to my resignation was about to show exactly how much they had undervalued me and just how far they might go to keep me now that they understood my worth. As we walked through the hallway, I could feel curious glances trailing us. Daniel's corner office was minimalist yet commanding. Awards-framed contracts and industry accolades lined one wall, while floor-to-ceiling windows framed a sweeping view of the Chicago skyline. He gestured toward the leather chair opposite his desk. I've been watching your work for a long time, he said, folding his hands, though clearly not closely enough. I stayed silent, letting him speak. The situation with Victoria concerns me, he admitted. This is the first I'm hearing about your promotion being denied. Why didn't you come to me directly? Chain of command, I replied evenly. Victoria is my supervisor. Going over her head would have been inappropriate. He nodded slowly. Admirable, but in this case, costly. Then he leaned forward. Tell me honestly, what would it take to keep you here? I considered my answer. Recognition for my actual contributions. Fair compensation. In a role where I can implement the strategies I've developed rather than just executing someone else's vision. Daniel studied me for a long moment, then said, I'll create a new role, Director of Operational Systems, reporting directly to me. Double your current salary, full remote flexibility, 3 days a week, and authority over all departmental workflows. The job is yours. I didn't answer right away. His eyebrows lifted slightly at my hesitation. Is that not enough? He asked. It's generous, I acknowledged. But I need to be clear, I'm not using a competing offer as leverage. Another company really is waiting for my decision. Daniel leaned back. What can they give you that we can't match or exceed a fresh start? I said plainly. No history of being overlooked. No colleagues who see me as support staff instead of leadership. Fair point, he admitted. But think about this. You've built systems here. You know inside out. You've built relationships that trust you. Starting over means rebuilding everything from scratch. He wasn't wrong. 20 years of institutional knowledge wasn't easily replaced. But neither was the memory of being dismissed. "I'll need the weekend to decide," I said. "Take it," Daniel replied. "But I need your answer by Monday morning." He stood signaling the meeting was over. The next move was mine. "And Marissa, I'd appreciate it if you could help stabilize the Baxter situation before you make your final decision." I nodded. "I'll handle Baxter personally today." Back at my desk, I found an email from Daniel already waiting. The subject line was proposed position details. I opened it and had to read the salary figure twice. It was more than double my current pay. The job description could have been lifted straight from my own notes on what the company truly needed. I was pulling together materials for the Baxter call when Victoria appeared beside my desk. Her expression was carefully neutral. "We need to talk," she said quietly. "Not here." "Lunch?" I asked. "I have the Baxter call at noon," I added. "After that, then." "My office at 2. I nodded, already turning back to the task at hand. The Baxter team was clearly frustrated when I joined the video conference, but relief washed over their faces the moment we began. Their demands were reasonable customizations that would normally take weeks, but that I knew could be phased in within days if we prioritized correctly. I laid out a step-by-step plan that addressed their most urgent needs first while building toward the full implementation. "This is exactly why we wanted to work with your company," their director said. "You understand our business, not just the tech specs." After the call, I documented the solution in clear, plain language and sent it to the implementation team with explicit instructions. Normally, I would have handled every piece myself. Today, I delegated, making myself available for questions, but refusing to take full ownership. At exactly 2 o'clock, I knocked on Victoria's door. She looked smaller somehow, her usually polished posture sagging dark circles under her eyes, hinting at a sleepless night. "Close the door," she said, gesturing toward the chair opposite her desk. "I understand Daniel offered you a new position." "He did," I confirmed. She nodded slowly. "I won't pretend I'm happy about it. But I understand why he did it. You're valuable to the company." I waited. "I owe you an apology." She continued the words, sounding as if they cost her something. "I've relied on your competence without truly acknowledging it or rewarding it." "May I ask you something?" I said. "When you told me I wasn't ready for senior management, what exactly did you think I was lacking?" Victoria shifted in her seat. "You've always been more technical. The behind-the-scenes problem solver. Senior management requires visibility, presence, political skill. In other words, I said I do the work while others take the spotlight." She looked away, her voice quieter. "That's oversimplifying." "Is it?" I asked. "The Baxter contract who presented the winning strategy to the executive team." "You did?" Victoria said reluctantly, "but based on the proposal I developed. And the client retention initiative last quarter that saved 4 major accounts who received the leadership award for that. That was a team effort," she said quickly. "A team I led, coordinated, and created all materials for." I reminded her, leaning forward slightly. "I'm not lacking qualifications, Victoria. I've simply allowed others to stand on my shoulders while I stayed invisible." Silence stretched between us. "Are you taking Daniel's offer?" she asked finally. "I haven't decided. If you stay," she said carefully, "things will be different between us." "Yes," I agreed. "They will." The weekend gave me space to think away from the hum of office politics. On Saturday, I took my grandson Ethan to the Field Museum, something I'd promised for months but never made time for. On Sunday, I called my sister in Arizona for advice. "What does your gut say?" she asked after I laid out the situation. "That I've outgrown the box they've put me in?" I said. "I'm not sure if Daniel's offer changes that or just makes the box more comfortable." "Would you report to Victoria in this new role?" "No. Directly to Daniel." "And what happens to Victoria?" "Daniel didn't say. But, reading between the lines, I think her position might be under review." My sister was quiet for a moment. "So your choice is, take a fresh start somewhere new, or accept a promotion that could lead to your former boss being demoted?" Put that way, it felt different. "I don't want revenge," I said slowly. "I just want recognition for my work." "Are you sure?" she pressed. "Because from what you've told me, Part of you would enjoy seeing her face the consequences of underestimating you. Her words hit closer than I wanted to admit. Was that what I wanted? To see Victoria humbled, to watch her realize how much she depended on me while dismissing my contributions. By Monday morning, I had my answer. I arrived at 7:30 a.m., my old start time, and went straight to Daniel's office. His assistant wasn't in yet, but his door was open. "You're early," he said, looking up from his computer. "I wanted to give you my answer before the day got busy," I replied, taking the seat across from him. "And I'm accepting your offer with 2 conditions." His eyebrows lifted. "I'm listening. First, I want full hiring authority for 3 positions I believe are essential." "Reasonable," he said. "And the second, Victoria stays in her current position." Daniel's eyebrows rose. "After how she treated you." "Why? Because replacing her doesn't fix the underlying problems in how the department operates," I said. "And because I don't want my first leadership decision to be seen as revenge." He regarded me with new interest. "That's unexpected and politically astute. I've learned a few things from the sidelines," I replied. "Very well," he said at last. "Victoria stays, though. Her department will now coordinate through your office for all operational matters." "Thank you." "No," Marissa, Daniel said, extending his hand. "Thank you for staying. The announcement will go out this morning. I suggest you be ready for quite a reaction." He wasn't wrong. At 10 a.m., the company-wide email hit. Inboxes my promotion to Director of Operational Systems, reporting directly to Daniel with expanded authority and strategic oversight. Within minutes, my email was flooded with congratulations, questions, and meeting requests. Ken from accounting stopped by looking sheepish. "So, you'll be my boss now." "Technically, yes," I said. "Is that going to be a problem?" He shook his head quickly. "No, honestly, you've always been the one who actually knows what's going on anyway." The rest of the day felt different. People who had barely acknowledged me before suddenly found reasons to introduce themselves. Administrative assistants I'd always treated with respect now smiled at me with a knowing glint. They understood better than anyone how much invisible work kept the company afloat. Victoria avoided me until late afternoon when she appeared at my desk holding a folder. "The quarterly strategy document," she said stiffly. "Since operational planning now falls under your purview, you'll need to present this at the executive meeting tomorrow." I accepted the folder. "Thank you. I'll review it tonight." She turned to leave, then hesitated. "For what it's worth, I didn't recommend against your promotion because I thought you were incapable. I did it because I couldn't afford to lose you from my team." It was probably the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. "That's the fundamental problem, isn't it?" I replied. "Good managers develop their people, even if it means letting them move on." She nodded once sharply and walked away. That evening, I stayed late reorganizing my workspace for the new role. Daniel stopped by on his way out. "Still here? I thought you'd be celebrating." I smiled. "I'll celebrate this weekend. Right now, I'm planning. Planning what? How to make sure no one else in this company is overlooked the way I was." I handed him a document I'd been working on. "This is my proposed structure for the new department. Department, including training programs to identify internal talent and systematically develop it." Daniel flipped through the pages, his eyebrows lifting higher with each one. "You developed all this today?" "No." I admitted. "I've been refining it for about 2 years. I just never had the authority to put it into action." He shook his head, looking impressed. "Remind me never to underestimate you, Marissa." "That's the plan," I said with a smile. 3 months later, the transformation was in full swing. My new team included a brilliant systems analyst who had been stuck in IT support and a process developer who had been mislabeled as an administrative assistant. Together, we streamlined operations across 4 departments, cutting overtime by 40% while increasing productivity across the board. Victoria and I established a professional working relationship. It wasn't friendly, but it was respectful. Once freed from the operational details she'd never fully mastered, she excelled at client-facing work. In an unexpected bonus, employee satisfaction scores for the division climbed dramatically. Baxter Industries expanded their contract to include 2 additional service lines, both specifically requesting my team to handle implementation. Their CEO even called Daniel personally to praise the company's remarkable turnaround in operational excellence. 6 months after my non-promotion on a crisp Friday afternoon, I left the office at exactly 5:00 p.m., a habit I'd maintained despite my expanded responsibilities. Ethan was at the kitchen table when I got home, homework spread out in front of him. "How was work?" "Grandma," he asked, looking up from a half-finished math worksheet. "Productive," I replied, setting my laptop bag down. "We launched the new training program today. 25 employees will now get development opportunities they wouldn't have had before." "Like you didn't get?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "Yes," I said softly. "Exactly like that." He thought for a moment. "That's a nice way to fix things. Instead of getting mad, you're making it better for other people." I smiled, recognizing the truth in his words. Sometimes, the best response to being undervalued isn't anger, it's proving your worth so clearly that no one can ignore it again. That night, as Ethan slept and I reviewed slides for Monday's executive meeting, my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel Board approved your promotion to VP level, effective next month. Unanimous vote. Victoria gave the strongest recommendation. Congratulations. I set the phone down, feeling a quiet wave of satisfaction. This wasn't about revenge. It was about finally being seen, truly seen, for what I had always been capable of. The corner office was nice, but that wasn't the victory. The victory was knowing I had built something lasting. Changing a system that had failed not only me, but countless others whose quiet competence had been taken for granted. The real win wasn't my new title or the corner office. It was building a structure that allowed others to rise without having to fade into the background first. Sometimes the most powerful response to being underestimated isn't about proving your doubters wrong in some grand cinematic moment. It's about reshaping the environment so the talent, no matter how quietly it works, can no longer be overlooked. For me, the journey wasn't just a personal victory, it became a blueprint for change. My team now included people who had been dismissed as support or back office staff, and they were thriving in ways the old system never allowed. I'd watched an overlooked analyst lead a client negotiation flawlessly. I'd seen a former receptionist design an operations workflow that saved hundreds of hours. Those moments were the true markers of success. If you've ever felt invisible in your workplace, doing more than your share, while others collect the recognition, I want you to hear this clearly. The skills that make you indispensable are the same skills that qualify you for leadership. Don't wait for someone to hand you the acknowledgement you deserve. Build your case every day in a way that makes denial impossible. Document your wins. Make your value visible, even if you have to step outside your comfort zone to do it. And if you're in a position of leadership, already don't fall into the trap my former boss did. Good leaders develop their people, even when it means those people might outgrow the role you have for them. That's not a threat to your position. It's proof of your effectiveness. Looking back, I realized my turning point wasn't the meeting where my promotion was denied. It was the moment I decided to stop quietly propping up a system that didn't value me. The day I chose to step back and let the cracks show was the day I reclaimed my power. If you found something in my story that resonates, something that makes you rethink your own career path, then I'm glad I shared it. Because the truth is, your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. It's defined by the impact you make, whether they acknowledge it or not. I'd love to hear from you. After everything I went through, your voice matters to me. Share your thoughts in the comments. Would you have stayed and rebuilt the system like I did, or walked away for a fresh start? Your perspective can inspire someone else who's standing at the same crossroads right now. If my story reminded you of a time you were underestimated, tell me about it. We can't change the past, but we can learn from each other's journeys. And remember, know your worth, protect your boundaries, and never let someone else decide the limits of your potential.